Welcome, everyone. We're glad to have you joining me today. My name is Cyndy McDonald, and I am the hostess for these interviews that I do with subject matter experts. And these are experts in areas that are of importance to you and the families that you work with. And today I have with me Dale Price. And Dale Price is an educational consultant. He has an office in Austin, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Los Angeles. But he literally works with people from coast to coast. So welcome, Dale.
Hi, Cyndy. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks.
We're really glad to have you. So can you give us a little bit more information about your background, your experience, and how did you become an IEC, an independent educational consultant?
Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to do this interview with you and share with all of the viewers. My story of how I became an independent educational consultant really started when I was in high school. When I came out of the closet, I had some pretty rough circumstances that happened. I didn't have a place to live. I remember I lived in like 6 different places just to graduate high school, and I had a lot of families just kind of embrace me and take me in just to get through high school. And then to go through the college system, I had to really find my own way. I didn't really have anyone tell me how to get from point A to point B. I didn't know where I wanted to go to college, didn't know what I wanted to study, and I really relied on, people in the community to help me get through it all. So I started out at a community college, got my associate's degree in Waco, Texas, and then transferred to the University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns, in which I got my bachelor's degree. But all along, it was only because people were helping me get through the system, helping me apply for college, read my essays, helping me with career inventories, and giving me a place to stay rent-free. And so after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, my passion for education and giving back was something that was so part of me because of where I had been and what I had gone through. And then I ended up working in higher education. And I started working in college admissions in 2006. And I truly loved college admissions. So for 10 years, I loved working with students that wanted to go to school. But I noticed something. Students were signing up for programs and majors and, submitting applications, and they were really unsure of what they wanted to do, of why they were selecting, the particular college they were applying to. And they were a lot of times picking majors that were just kind of sexy and fun. And that resulted in students dropping out. That resulted in students transferring from school to school. And they were trying to find themselves, and all at the parents' expense. Also, another reason why I started Access College America was because I really do have a philanthropic spirit. I was president of the Texas Access Los Angeles chapter, which is the official alumni association for the University of Texas. And in that role, I got to raise scholarships and award them to students. So, once I left, the college I worked at for about 10 years, I started Access College America, and I really kind of married the two things I was most passionate about: helping students find the right college fit so they're not kind of bouncing all over, the college sector. And 2, helping them find scholarships and create competitive award-winning applications and giving back to the community, because I am a product of the community. And so, that is one thing I do. So Access College America, while I do a lot of college planning, I also do a lot of free events and outreach and things like that as well. I'm in the community a lot. I think this year I did almost 50 free college planning workshops, spoke to over 300 families on college planning. I did Austin's first ever college bound boot camp, all totally free, as my way of giving back to those that's helped me. And so that's how I ended up in this really awesome role.
Well, that's exciting. So you said you were in higher education. Tell us a little bit about what that asks, what kind of organization or institution were you a part of when you were in higher ed?
So for 10 years, I worked at the Los Angeles Film School in Hollywood, which was a awesome experience. Had an office on Sunset Boulevard. I got to interview students from all over the world, study film, animation, games, entertainment business, audio recording. I mean, it was really, really a lot of fun. And again, a lot of the times when students would come and they would apply to the Los Angeles Film School, and in that role, I don't know if I said it or not, but I was the senior admissions officer in that program. You know, a lot of times it was students that were coming to me after they were unsuccessful in a traditional program. You know, they had tried studying a major or tried attending a traditional school or any school, and they realized late that I don't want to do any of that. I'm more interested, or they had an epiphany later in life that, you know, of what they really were passionate about doing. So, you know, in my role, you know, as a senior admissions officer, I did interview students, I attended college fairs, and I did workshops, and I visited all types of schools and spoke with them about basically, you know, how to get into the entertainment industry and the different types of programs and professions out there.
Oh, that's fascinating. So, as an advisor, you work with students. If a student walks into your office and tells you that he or she's not sure about their sexual identity, what do you tell them? If they have questions, what do you tell them as an advisor?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, well, first of all, I think it's important that we respect everybody's privacy and that we do create that space, that safe space, you know, where students, you know, can disclose, you know, things like that. And this is going to happen. I mean, it's just the nature of what we do. You know, students are going to share a lot of things with us. And so number one, first important, always important that we, you know, we have that, you know, that we do set those boundaries, those, you know, that we don't disclose, you know, client circumstances with anybody, no matter what it is that they're sharing with us. Secondly, allow them to talk. You know what? You may be the only person that they have ever disclosed anything with, whether it's religion, their orientation, you know, a family circumstance, you know. But I think it's important to also understand, or at least for me, I'm not a counselor. Okay, I don't have specific training. I'm not a therapist. As you mentioned, I'm an advisor, and so there is a difference. And so, you know, before I cross that boundary of providing any counseling or any therapy, first and foremost, I make sure they're safe if they are disclosing something to me. I make sure their home life, everything is fine. You know, there's no abuse. You know, they're not getting kicked out of the house like I got kicked out of the house. You know, I want to make sure that that's fine. But then I refer them to resources, you know, that can really, really help them out. You know, living in Austin, I almost said Los Angeles, but living in Los Angeles and Austin and, you know, Charlotte, North Carolina, those three places, you know, fortunately there's great organizations that I can refer folks to. PFLAG, the LGBT Center, there's different clubs and organizations. And always, you know, if the student says, listen, I need help with this, I want to speak with somebody about this. You know, that's, for me personally, it's outside of my area of expertise. So then always good to refer them possibly to a guidance counselor in which they can also help them in on that. But, you know, I'm not going to call mom and dad and say, listen, your child told me that they're struggling with you know, their identity or their orientation. You know, that's absolutely, I wouldn't consider that appropriate for me to do, but refer them to resources to where they can also get help.
True. That's very true. I think that's very good advice. And knowing the line between being an advisor and a counselor is really key. And that's one of the things that we need to be aware of is because these things are going to come up, as you said, in lots of different circumstances, and being able to communicate that, but creating that safe environment, that confidentiality where they feel comfortable sharing that. So then that leads me to my next question. Is that something they should write about in their college essays? Sometimes they feel like, you know, I mean, I've seen students come out in their college essays. So, you know, what do you recommend about that?
Well, you know, Great. Another great question, Cyndy. You know, it's great to have that sense of pride and that sense of self-awareness and acceptance. Two things. One, it's always the student's work. Okay, so
Mhm.
the student has to ultimately be the person that says, I'm going to disclose this. I'm going to write this. Okay, so I'm never going to tell a person absolutely not, do not do that. However, I will share with them that an admissions officer, the purpose of the main essay, one, yes, it is to share something with the admissions committee. They cannot find anything else about you anywhere else in your essay. But more importantly, you have to think about what is the narrative that you're trying to create about yourself and how is it going to bolster your college application. So for a student that is trying to get into a STEM-based career or study computer science, I don't know that really disclosing your sexual orientation or identity really belongs, you know, in that main essay, you know. So you're wanting to remember as an advisor, you know, you're helping your clients build a case as to why they deserve to be in that college. You're helping them highlight their strongest attributes and make sure that all those signs are always pointing to what they want to study. So, you know, I remember hearing someone say, you know, that there's context and then there's plot when you're working on an essay. The context is the words. But the plot is really that narrative, that story. So, you know, perhaps if someone discloses that they are, you know, gay or lesbian or transitioning or, you know, anything like that, that it's okay to mention that, but it doesn't have to be the whole story. Maybe you
Mhm.
discovered what it was that you were most interested in doing, or maybe you discovered your strength working on a project and collaborating with, you know, an LGBTQ organization, something like that. But it doesn't necessarily need to be the plot. It can remain in the context. Something else that I remember, something else that I want to say, oh, here's the other thing I want to point out. Some schools actually are welcoming, you know, welcoming students or wanting to know students that are a part of, you know, the LGBTQ community, such as Duke. You know, they have a very specific essay prompt. So, you know, you have to think about, first of all, what is the role of disclosing, you know, your orientation or identity? How is it going to bolster your case? Does it fit in this prompt also? Some schools are going to celebrate you and some schools may not. And in that case, as I obviously have talked about this a few times, but if you do have a student that discloses that they're, you know, gay or lesbian, and if a school rejects them, and this is the same thing I say when families ask, is it okay to disclose religion or, you know, things like that? If a school rejects you because you have disclosed something to them that offends that reader, you did not belong on that college campus anyway, and they did
Right,
you a favor.
right, right. Right. Exactly. And so then that leads me to my next question is how do you know? How do you find out as an advisor or as a student, you know, which colleges are going to be more friendly or a positive for you environment experience that are going to be more welcoming for you, you know, as a
Uh,
student? So how do you know what to look for? How do you go through? Do you have websites that you go to for college search? How do you do that?
You know, Cyndy, I heard somewhere there's like something like 5,000 colleges and universities in America, and they are all different. They're different shapes, different sizes, have different people on campus. They celebrate different types of activities. And, you know, first of all, start with the mission statement of the college or the
Mhm.
university. Read the mission statement of the school, and it will really tell you what is it that's important about that college. What is it that they are promoting? Are they inclusive? You know, starting with that. Secondly, you know, look at, you know, and again, you have to visit the colleges, but look at, when you visit the school, look at the college culture, look at the faculty members, find out if there's any representation from them in the LGBTQ
Mhm.
community. Look at pride parades and look and see, was my school present in the pride parade? Did they have any kind of involvement or activity in some of these outside events or organizations? Some schools have strict policies against students that are part of the LGBTQ community. We could go into all of the schools. There's one right up the street from me in Austin, Texas, that isn't completely so embracing of students. So mission statements, read their school policies on, on students. Also, you can easily look and see if there's any official school student groups, that
Mhm.
are receiving institutional funding to be a club on campus, to be an LGBTQ organization too. Sometimes it's one thing for a college to have an unofficial group, which is just a student-led group. But if you are a college that is truly embracing, truly celebrating diversity on a campus, and you're not excluding any organization, then that college or university should have the infrastructure to really support a student-led organization that identifies as gay, lesbian, transgender, all of that. So clubs, activities, mission statements, look in the community, just to recap, and see if they're participating in any events out in the community to really, highlight their, how warm and embracing they are.
What about housing? Looking at housing and how the housing is set up, or asking questions about that.
And that's also something that's really important. I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something that I skipped over. It's one thing to find a college or a school that you're going to be on campus with, but you got to live there too. You're going to have to go back to your dorm. You're probably going to live with a stranger at the same time in a very close quarters. You're going to have bathrooms and showers, and you need to first of all make sure that you're going to be safe and that you're comfortable in that environment. I think safety is so important for students, not only professional, to help develop them professionally, but personally too.
Mhm.
The dropout rates and suicide rates, they're so much higher with LGBT
Yeah.
students because the odds are really, they've got a lot of adversities to overcome. So dormitories also important. A lot of colleges are showcasing their preferred pronouns. You've
Mhm.
got hall coordinators and residence assistants, and lots of colleges and universities are leading with that. But I think it's important to also have that conversation before you sign up for a college and literally spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Vet out the housing as well. Find out, where am I going to live? How are you going to pair me up with the roommate? How are you going to make sure that the roommate I am going to be paired up with is going to be comfortable living with me, and vice versa? And these are the kinds of questions that you've absolutely got to have, because otherwise you could be paired up with somebody that you absolutely do not get along with. And the first year dropout rate in college is 50%. 50% of students are going to drop out their first year in college. And so make sure that you are really vetting the living conditions and, really looking at everything so that your child is safe, is comfortable, and that the school is also being a champion for them at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important because it is the first time that they've had that opportunity, and there's a lot that goes into it for sure. So,
Cindy, it can be really scary too. I mean, this is whenever students are living away from home for the very first time. They have they have a lot of access to a lot of distractions. And so making sure that the resources and the infrastructure is there, and the community of students that can really help keep them accountable and focused on their education and school studies is also important.
mhm, yeah. So now I know of one website I've had other people recommend. I think it's Campus Pride. Is that, I know they have lists of schools that are, more friendly than others, and recommendations and things like that. Is that helpful, or?
I mean, it is helpful, but at the end of the day, I really encourage all of my clients to really seek out their own list, their own advice. Really speak with faculty members, talk with the admissions officer, and really look around on a college campus. And so that, I mean, one of the things we absolutely can't do is just look at a bunch of rankings and look at a bunch of lists and then tell a student, I think you'd be a great fit here because it says XYZ.
Mhm.
Part of our role as an advisor is to really help our students get plugged in. And we can't be the middleman between the college and the client. We've got to take ourselves out and we've got to connect the client with the university so that they can really decide on their own. But Campus Pride is a really great resource. They have a lot of presence. They have a presence on a lot of colleges from coast to coast. So if someone is just completely at a loss, they don't know where to start, they do have some resources available too.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. So it sounds like visiting the colleges and really spending the time to talk to people is the best way to really assess the fit between a student and a college.
Yes, I mean, visiting the college, going to a university's website, looking up the clubs and activities, and if you don't see any organizations on that list that a college is actively promoting that is in line with what you are looking for, there's one of your first clues that there may
Mhm.
not be a student movement, or if there is a student movement, it may not be getting recognized on that college campus or university. So there is a clue right there. If you see multiple groups and clubs and activities that are in line with your identity and orientation and what you're looking to be a part of, then wonderful. So the mission statement's wonderful, clubs and activities wonderful. Also you can connect with your local PFLAG group, or if there's an LGBT center in that city, call them, ask them, say, hey,
Mhm.
what is the relationship you have with the University of Texas, which is, I'm in Austin, that's where UT is at.
Mhm.
They have a wonderful, relationship with the community. But again, check with the LGBT, centers and find out from them. And they will be honest with you. They may say, absolutely, do not attend there, run for the hills. It may not be your best option. Don't give them your money, you know. And that's so important too. Families have got to realize you are giving this college, this institution, your money. You can determine, what a school prioritizes by deciding whether or not to send your child there and supporting their bottom line causes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point to make. So tell me what PFLAG stands for. And are there centers all over the world? Is this just in the US? Because we have people from all over the world that are involved in the courses and all. So what does PFLAG stand for?
So yes, I actually got involved with PFLAG when I lived in Waco too. It was just my very first dive into a very warm, embracing group of parents and families of lesbian and gays. I think that is what the acronym stands for. But it was such a great organization of families and other, adults, young adults. And we all got together. We got to do holiday activities. We got to get together and talk about things that we were going through. For someone that maybe has absolutely nowhere to go, that's a really great starting point. And the door is always going to be open. And you better believe that, somebody that's in that PFLAG group is going to know about the college down the street. And if it is going to be a school that is going to be embracing or not. But PFLAG is just, it's all over the country. They're free to participate in, and it really is made up of volunteers that have a true altruistic spirit and genuinely want to see the best for the community.
That's great. That's really great. And that's great advice that we can share with our students. Any other words of wisdom that you think you would like to share with advisors and counselors that are working with students,
You
especially at the high school level?
we get it all. I mean, we're going to get all kinds of crazy stories and confessions and all types of things. And I think the most important thing is, one, make sure at the end of the day the number one thing we need to do is make sure that the student's going to be safe. And wherever college they're going to go to, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are focusing on having a student-centered approach, making sure that they're going to be safe on that college campus, making sure that they are well aware of all the great things and maybe not so great things as well, that could, end up on any college campus.
Right.
Our
Any
role
student.
is any student. I mean, our role in helping students find the right college fit is making sure they're finding the right academics, social, and that they can afford that program too. And so, just realize that you may have students come to you that are not in line with, your values or your principles. But, we have a professional job. We are advisors. I'm not a counselor. There's probably a few that are counselors that do this. And so, welcome everybody, and allow everybody to go through this experience and go through self-discovery and reflection on their own, and really celebrate them no matter what path they are on. Whether you agree with it or not, make sure they always have that space to feel great about meeting with you and finding colleges, because that is ultimately what it is about.
Wow, you put it very well and very eloquently, Dale. And that becomes our mantra as counselors, is working from students from that perspective. So thank you so much, and thank you for your time today. This has just been so informative.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share. And if families, or other counselors have any questions, they want to connect with me, they can always visit my website, accesscollegeamerica.org. There's lots of really great resources on there. And thank you again, Cyndy.
Thank you.